Well, I did not set out to do monsters in movies. That was not my first love as a kid watching TV and film was funny things and song and dance things. So variety shows like the Carol Burnett Show, and everybody had a variety show back in the 70s. The sitcoms like I Love Lucy, the Dick Van Dyke Show, Mary Tyler Moore, Mayberry RFD, and those goofy characters that came with them, those ones I could relate to. Barney Fife, played by Don Knotts, Gilligan, played by Bob Denver, Gomer Pyle by Jim Nabors, and anything Jerry Lewis did or Danny Kaye did at their movies, I was just like, I couldn't get enough of it. And that's what gave an awkward, goofy, skinny kid who was made fun of in the Midwest for not fitting in some solace and some escape was that there's adults that look something like what I might grow into that are doing something that's entertaining and it's helping me, so maybe I can do the same for someone else who's lonely sitting in their house watching TV one day. So that's what made me want to get on that TV. Guillermo del Toro is my favorite director I've ever worked with, and every director that I work with now knows that, and they don't even try to compete. It's like everyone knows Guillermo's number one. He's my first love, now we've completed our fifth film together now. That was Crimson Peak, which comes out October 2015. Haunted house story, Victorian era, gothic horror. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And I'm playing a couple of characters in it, and at this stage of the game, I'm not allowed to say what, but I said to Guillermo, I'm going to be doing lots of conventions this summer. I'm going to get asked a lot, like, what are you doing now? What can I tell them? He said, well, tell them it is a haunted house story, and what the you think I'm going to be in it? So that's a quote from Guillermo. I don't use the F word, but okay. So.
It's a good impression, by the way.
Thank you. I've known the man for years. I've heard his jokes a lot. He and I've been through a lot together, and I think I met him on Mimic back in '97, and then Hellboy he came back around 5 years later to get me for that. Then after that was Pan's Labyrinth, that was like. Hellboy was the movie that put me as a speck on the radar finally after I've been working consistently for in the teens of years. And then all of a sudden there's that blue guy and with the internet live, it made people look up who's the blue guy. And then that's when you could marry me up with, he was also in Hocus Pocus and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and so people were kind of putting the thread together because of Hellboy. That's what started it. And then the next thing he did was Pan's Labyrinth, and he came back around he said nobody can play the Fawn but you, and I was very intimidated by that, by the way. And then the Pale Man, became a part of that as well. I played both characters in the film. That movie was the one that was the most lasting piece of art that I've ever done. That's the film that people have the most emotional reaction to. I get lots of troubled teens that have watched that movie and found some strength out of it. That rebellion, when your authority figure isn't right, rebellion can be healthy if handled in the right way with the right choices. And Guillermo's very much about that. He's a rebellious kid in a big fat man's body, and he's the first one to admit that. So when you have that kind of a man telling stories, to be a part of that ride is magical. And when you end up at the Oscars in a movie that has 6 nominations that night, that's like going to the prom. You're dressed up and you're like, this is the biggest night of my life. And that's what Pan's Labyrinth was. And that was also a page turner for me personally, where I went from being, where the press didn't know what to call me, creature, guy, freak of nature, mime, stunt, contortion person. They were finally calling me an actor because of Pan's Labyrinth. That was the throw. That's when the comparisons were being made to the throwback of the classic black and white monster movies with Boris Karloff and Lon Chaney, and that's when the LA Times ran a cover story of me with big huge picture of me doing this to my face. Then the headline read, "He's the Lon Chaney of today." how humbling is that? You know, how like, I had to pinch myself. Am I dreaming that this is being said on the front page of a humongous newspaper? So that's the movie, Pan's Labyrinth. So when you ask, and that is Del Toro's masterpiece. And of course, since then we did Hellboy 2 together, in which with expanding Abe Sapien and also playing the Angel of Death and the Chamberlain in that. So he gets his use out of me when we do a movie together. And in Crimson Peak, I played a couple of characters that I'm not supposed to tell you what they are. And we have more coming too. He's also got Frankenstein in the works. It's been in the works for a few years, so let's hope it actually comes through. And he just secretly we had a secret ninja meeting while we were doing Crimson Peak about another movie he wants to do after that, maybe starting in January. That would be, I can't say jack nothing about, but except for it might be happening. Yeah, I can tell you that they're rumors started by people who want the movies to happen, not by the studio or anyone involved with the movies, unfortunately. I wish they were the ones starting the rumors because that would mean something. But Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro, they do the circuit of conventions and do a lot of press as well as I. And so they get asked a lot about Hellboy movies, as much as I do, if not more. And the answer is always, I would love to do it again. Ron said it, Guillermo said it, Selma Blair would love to. I've talking to her. And that gets turned into, it's going to happen, you guys, with thumbs on phones. Because they heard it in a panel somewhere at a convention. Well, no, we want to do it. We all want to do it. The love is there, but $150 million is not there. That's what we're missing. That's what we're missing. And we don't have a studio to put, they're balking at that kind of a price tag, which is way more than the first two cost to make. And Guillermo doesn't want to do a third one with a tighter budget again. He wants to have the full budget. And I think and he's holding out for that, and he's got way more on his plate than he can do in a lifetime. He has enough projects on his calendar to last long after he's dead. Right? So Hellboy 3 might just have to take a back seat if he doesn't get the terms that he wants, because he can claim his own terms now, and other companies are willing to, cough up what he needs for the other ideas he has. One of which is the one we've been talking about that I can't say anything about, that would happen after Crimson Peak. Oh my gosh, it's going to be exciting. Right. So good. It's going to be so good if we get to make it. I know. Having a mime background kind of, it opened up my understanding of communication happening not just with this, but it happens with the entire package, How our posture, our expression, our gestures, which I can't stop doing. I'm sorry if that's ruining your cameras. No. But so much goes into communication. I think over 50% of it is actually physical, visual, as opposed to just the words. What we do visually can change the words we're saying dramatically. So the mime came in really handy to really get in touch with that. So when you're playing characters that are covered in layers of latex foam rubber, having an awareness of how that character reads physically is extremely important. It becomes another element to the acting process that I have to pay close attention to. The contorting thing, I can put my legs behind my head when I've stretched, and I don't know that that's like, it's a kind of more of a party trick than a skill, I would say, and it comes in handy for the characters that have to be more limber or strike. When somebody makes a maquette of a crazy creature that's going to be in a movie, and it's in some weird position. The Time Machine, 2001, I think it came out, is a prime example. They did a maquette of the lead spy Morlock, and they did it in a position. They're like, "Oh, do we know anybody who can do that?" My phone rang, so that's how I got that job. So it's come in handy, yeah. I love all the characters I've played. They're like children to me, and you're not supposed to have a favorite, in the right kind of family. I do have a favorite, I'm not going to lie. Even I invited them all into my heart, and I've gotten to know them all very well. Even the evil ones you have to love in order to play them right, I think. But Abe Sapien from the Hellboy movies is probably he's closest to he's the most like me, I think. And and getting to know him over the course of 2 feature films, 2 animated films that I voiced, and a video game that I voiced as well. We're like this, Abe and I. So yeah, so going back to the, is there going to be a Hellboy 3? I would love to do, more than anything, love to reprise that role because he's my homie. I love Abe Sapien, you know, so he will forever live in my heart. Yes. Oh gosh.
What is it to you? How do you feel about being here today?
I feel good. I love. Well, in fact, Crypticon Seattle is the I've done this. This is my 3rd time being here, and I believe that there's a Camden Toy and there might be one other that have done. It's rare that they brought somebody back 3 times, so I'm told. So that's very humbling and I feel very special and loved on, and everyone on the staff and I know lots of local people that I've met through Crypticon here in the Pacific Northwest. That have become friends and family, and that's love. That's a love thing. And Crypticon, I think the horror crowd, more so than the comic book fantasy, sci-fi crowd. Those specific conventions have a different vibe to them. The horror specific conventions, even though there's a lot more darkness and like there's darker clothes, darker makeups, more blood dripping on things. But the hugs are more plentiful and longer lasting, and the head pets are more meaningful and craved. So I find more of an emotional connection to people at this specific convention. I've done Crypticon Minneapolis and Kansas City as well, and here in Seattle, and I love the crowd that comes with it. I love the family that comes with it.
Everybody love me. Everybody love me. Everybody love me. You ain't messing with my Dougie.
Teach me how to Dougie. Teach me how to Dougie. Teach me how to Dougie. Teach me how to Dougie.
Everybody love me. Everybody love me. Everybody love me. You ain't messing with my Dougie. Do it!